welcome back to the Gamer Crafting Podcast. This is episode 45, and I don't know what I'm going to call it. Hello everyone, welcome back. I am doing a finished object dance. For the first time this year, I realized that it's May 1st, and that's like... I had friends finishing things in like the first couple of weeks of January, and here I am over a month into quarantine and I'm just now finishing something. If that doesn't tell you that I am A, slow knitter, and B, been playing far too many video games, then I don't know what will. So this is my framework bralette by Jessie May Designs. I made it with my reverse Ravicorn DK. I actually finished this on Sunday. I was almost finished with it just about a week ago, but I still had to graft the straps together, and then they sat for a few more days before I managed to do that. So here is my framework bralette. I love it. It's super comfy. I'm totally into it. I'm gonna probably wear it a lot this summer just to hang around, kind of like I do with my Ripple bralette, which is also her pattern. I'm just gonna hang around and chill out. Right, so today I am going to kind of just bring you into the kitchen with me, and today I'm gonna be dyeing some yarn because I don't really know what else to talk about. A lot of traffic today. I don't really know what else to talk about, so I'm just gonna bring you into the kitchen with me and we're gonna dye some yarn. Okay, so hello everyone. You can probably see the condiments on the counter behind me. You can probably also see the hoodie draped over the draped over the ladder that's over there. We end up using that ladder like every day to get up to the printer or to balance the green screen on, so I mean it kind of just stays there because life. Anyway, so I brought you into the kitchen today. I have some back orders that need to be dyed. They were orders that were placed in the last couple of days. And so we've got Blueberry Blaze, which is one of the newer, it's kind of a semi-solid with a bit of a burn. I don't know what else to call it. I don't know if it has a technical dye term, but I've just been calling it a burn. So we have that. What else do I have? I have You Have Died of Dysentery. I have to dye that. I also have to dye, I'm missing something. I have to dye a set of mini skeins that are also within that burned set, and I'm forgetting something. Right, I had to check the dye board. I'm also going to be dyeing the new Animal Crossing colorway Desert Island package, and I'm also going to be dyeing, it's not an old shade, but it's been a little while since it's been released, but that one's called Sneck, so I'm dyeing those today. I will bring you with me for as much as I can. I will also be doing a bit of an experimental dye for the May the 4th, which is next week already. Today's May the 1st, which is just wild. You know, things haven't changed that much for us since quarantine, lockdown, whatever you want to call it, started. Things are, you know, roughly like not all that different for us. We work from home already, so that wasn't to change. You know, the amount of work that we're doing hasn't changed, which is obviously thanks to everyone who keeps placing orders and putting your faith in us, so that's really nice and we appreciate that. I guess the biggest thing that's changed is that we are only taking things to the post office once a week now, whereas before we were going 3 times, maybe even 4 times a week. And we would sort of merge that in with going to the gym to do strength training stuff, etc., which obviously we aren't doing now. So that means that 3 days worth of packages now have to go in 1 day, which means that like the way that we pack up orders has changed, and the amount that we're taking, I say we, only one of us is going out at a time. It's me, because I can carry more, and I am a little bit of a pack horse. It's like this weird, I'm a little bit proud of it, but also kind of annoyed because it means I have to do all of the major schlepping around. So it is a little bit different with regards to that. Anyway, so you'll notice that I'm not wearing my framework bralette anymore. It's because, I'm going to be honest, I'm a messy AF dyer. I don't want to get dye on it. I just finished it. I know that it's mostly black, but I would be really sad if I got like a smear of like red or black on it and like messed up the cute little neon stripies. I'd feel really sad. So that's why. I know a lot of you are wondering, but like, Ange, how's the support? Like, how was the knit? We're gonna get to that. Let me just get set up with some yarn, and then we'll just get into it. Remember like 1 minute ago when I was telling you that I'm a messy dyer? Here's some proof. Proof. An entire thing of blue dye exploded onto the ground, which I now have to attempt to clean up because I'm a fool. And when I was setting up my camera in into the stand, the stand, I was thinking, this looks weird. This looks like a different way than I normally set up for filming dyeing. It's almost as if my phone could fall right in. And then it did. And then I was like screeching and trying to get my phone, and bad. It was bad. Knocked over the thing of dye. Luckily my phone still works, but I'm gonna have to clean this up before I do anything else. Okay, moving on. I look a little bit like a Smurf now. I was on my feet as well, so I had to like go and scrub my feet and then scrub all of my footsteps from the kitchen to the bathroom and back. And as you can see, there's still a little bit of dye on the floor. So hooray! Excellent job! Well done, me. Fabulous. We're gonna move on. I've turned the light on so you can see into the pan a little bit more. So this is some acid water that I'm reusing from yesterday. It looks a bit pink tinted, but it's not. It's just the way that the yellowish light is reflecting off the bottom of the pot, whatever. I try to reuse water as often as I can. So I'm going to add some dye. This is the blue base for our blueberry blaze. Just making sure I got all the dye there, and I did. So I have back orders for a couple of skeins of this on sock, but today I'm also dyeing it onto a DK sock, and I'm also dyeing it onto the yak sock base. I try to sort of double up things as much as I can. So I'm just going to kind of get the yarn to take on that water a bit more. I'm going to try not to completely submerge my hands, or then I really truly will look like Smurfette. I'm going to use this spoon here. I like how that was immediately after me saying, look what a messy, I'm such a messy dyer. That's why I took off my framework bralette. Well, I'm glad that I did, otherwise I'd have just blue smears all over it. In fact, this shirt that I'm wearing has blue smears all over it. My leggings have blue smears, my face has blue smears. Well, I don't know if my face does. It probably does. I haven't actually looked at my face since I finished. Maybe that's for the best. So I've pulled this pot forward so that you'd be able to see me putting the yarn into dye, but I am going to push it back and out of the way here in a second once I make sure that everything is nice and saturated. Yep, definitely have blue smudges on my face. So anyway, about that framework bralette, oh my god, I still can't believe I did that. About the framework bralette, so it's a pretty easy knit, the way that she writes up the pattern. There's ways to modify it for your chest shape and your size and your preferences of how you'd like something to fit, etc. So that's really good. When I made my ripple bralette, read in the Ravelry comments that most people opted to choose a size smaller than they usually would to account for the stretchiness of a knit material, which I did, and my ripple bralette fits great. So for this one, I don't know, maybe I was just having like a weird esteem day, but I decided to cast on the size that I would normally wear, so like an XL or a double XL, and well, in women's sizing. I'm a medium in men's, so let's just all contemplate that for a minute. But, and so I really like it. I like the way it fits, but it feels a little bit loose for me to wear on its own, so I will probably wear it like over something else. I probably should have cast on the smaller size like I did with the ripple bralette, but I didn't, so more fool me, but it's fine. I still really like it. It's really comfy. It's going to be nice in the summer to wear under a pair of, you know, dungarees when I'm in here Well, I don't know. I don't think I do want to wear it dyeing. But then if I'm wearing it under something else, or no, over something else, I don't know. My point is it's going to be nice in the summer. I can use it when I'm sitting out on the balcony gardening. I can do that. I can garden in my framework bralette and treat everyone to my extremely white belly. Okay, so our Blueberry Blaze is on the hob. I'm going to turn the hob on because yarn tends to dye faster when you turn the heat on. So the heat is now on our Blueberry Blaze, and I guess next I could start with You Have Died of Dysentery. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to get some pans down. It might be noisy. Alright, miraculously I did that without a huge crash, which is the norm. So these are big catering pans that I use to dye. Big catering pans. I usually use one to have the yarn in and then another one over the top of it to keep the heat in. You can get lids for them, but I don't know, I never have. I just never have. I do have a lid for my big, giant Mama Gemma pan, which is up there next to my, I'm a mess today, I'm really sorry. Stop. My giant Mama Gemma pan up there next to my bags of chips. The chip bags that are so big they won't actually fit into the snack cupboard, so they have to go on top of the cabinet. Right, so I'm gonna do You Have Died of Dysentery now, which is a bit of a different dye technique, so I do it in the pan rather than in a pot. And again, like our Blueberry Blaze, I'm going to be doing it on a few different bases. So this is just the normal standard merino nylon sub base. So I'm going to do a couple skeins of that, 2 or 3. Maybe I'll do 3. I think I'll do 3. I've gotten a lot of orders for it recently. Alright, 3 skeins of that. And then just for good measure, I'm going to toss in a skein of yarn that just fell on the floor. No, didn't actually. I mean, it did fall on the floor, but you just saw me clean the floor, so it's fine. Okay, so one of the things that I do basically all of the yarn dyeing, but it's something that we've discussed between the two of us, is that we want to start putting some of the popular, more classic colorways that have been around a little while onto different yarn bases other than just sock. Because for a long time we were just kind of like sock yarn central. That's pretty much all we sold. And honestly, when you're building a business, you need to sort of stock the thing that sells most as you're building things up. So sock yarn is the thing that we overwhelmingly sell the most of. But now that the business is growing, we're starting to add things on different bases. You may have noticed that in the collections that we've released, there's more bases that are optioned. When we did Operation Social Justice, our colorways for that had 10 different bases. From lace all the way up to a super chunky. There was textured yarn, there was the whole nine, basically anything you could think of. We were offering it on that for Operation Social Justice, but not with silk because we don't dye silk, because I feel bad for the poor silkworms that get boiled alive. Yeah, I know that there are other ways to harvest silk, but it is definitely not the norm, and I've not heard of any yarn suppliers that are offering silk that doesn't involve the boiling of silkworms, which just kind of makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. Right, so I'm dyeing You've Died of Dysentery, which was inspired by Oregon Trail. And if you come to our Saturday night live streams, you know that Oregon Trail is one of the first games that we've played, and we just keep returning it to it because people love it so much. If you are not an American millennial, you might not know what Oregon Trail is. Oregon Trail is basically, it was like an old computer game with like educational benefits to teach you about the Oregon Trail in the United States, which was basically all of the settlers that they would start in Springfield, Missouri, and they would go across to the west coast of America. Obviously there's a lot of sort of whitewashed and sanitized history with regards to how the Native American peoples were treated, the indigenous peoples of America were treated with regards to people being allowed to, travel through all of these lands to move out west. But Oregon Trail was something that almost probably every American millennial has probably played, and it is a little bit punishing because you could starve, you could die of dysentery or cholera or snake bites, which are strangely common, and it makes me wonder, were snakes more aggressive in those times, or is it just an error with the game's algorithm? I don't know. So the Oregon Trail is actually a pretty fascinating bit of history, especially if you read about like the Donner Party, and I'm not going to get into that, it's a little bit grisly. But it's an interesting piece of history. I'm talking about the Oregon Trail too much. Anyway, the game inspired this colorway and the colors of the old school game, which are like these really bright pinks and blues and greens, etc. So I have got 3 skeins of sock yarn, I've got a skein of DK sock, and I'm also going to grab a skein of yak sock. Because if there's one thing I love, it's how neons show up on a yak sock. And I've never actually dyed this colorway onto yak sock before, so we're gonna see how it turns out. So I'm gonna lay them into the pan here. I wish I had like 2 cameras so you could see what I'm doing, like cooking shows. Maybe someday. Maybe someday when I manage to stop dropping my electronics into dye pots and then screaming as I tried to get them out of their cases to dry them off, and then knocking over pots of dye, and then having to spend 20 minutes scrubbing dye off the floor and feet and face, even though I totally still have blue on my face. I'm not doing well today. Oh my god, what is wrong with me? Okay, so this is a bit of a tricky colorway to dye. You've dyed of dysentery, because if there's too much water, the colors all bleed together and then get a little bit muddy and gross. And if there's not enough water in the pan, then the colors end up too saturated in certain spots and not saturated enough in other spots, because these are, well, I don't think the yak is, but the other ones are superwash yarns. And superwash yarns, they take color really quickly and grab onto it, which means that sometimes you can have issues with having patchy colors. So I'm gonna give this a good old rinse, and then I'm gonna get some water here into the pan to sort of play with dyes, and then I'm gonna show you, I don't know, kind of how it's dyed, I guess. So yeah, I mean, whatever. If you want to copy me, you're welcome to try, I guess. Forgot the citric acid, the magic maker of yarn dyeing. Citric acid. I have actually 3 different kinds of citric acid in 3 different granule sizes, depending on what I'm doing. 2 are specifically for speckling, and 1 is just for easy dissolving into some water. So 3 different kinds of citric acid, depending on what I'm doing. And that's all just by, you know, trial and error. Okay, here we go. Don't worry, I've made sure that my phone is in the correct position this time, so I won't drop it into the pan of dye. I'm really lucky that I didn't already add the blue to that pot before I dropped my phone in, otherwise I don't really know what would have happened. I imagine the citric acid dissolved in it probably wouldn't have played well. So I'm just gonna kind of soak the yarn. Yes, you can kind of see there's a little bit of blue coming off of my hands from the dye on the floor, but there's blue in this colorway, so it's not really that big a deal. All of my recipes that I use, I write down specifically to the gram what dye and how much of it I used. And I call it my diary, because that's the kind of nerdy geek that I am. So this actually needs a little bit more water to get more of a fluidity when dyeing, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. Okay, so with this dye, you've dyed of dysentery. One of the dyes that I use is only available from American dye sellers. I can't get it from anyone here in the UK. So I've been hoarding it because that American dye seller has stopped shipping internationally due to the issues with shipping restrictions and shipping speeds and everything. So I'm hoarding it a little bit. I'm definitely hoarding it a little bit. And then one of the other dyes that I use for this, like if you try to use this dye to speckle, it turns out wildly different than, or like if you just put dye directly onto the yarn, it looks wildly different than if you dissolve it first. So I've gone ahead and dissolved that. And I also always forget the order of this yarn. I always have to look it up in my dye notebook, which I'm looking to digitize, to be honest, because after that disaster today, it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, only a matter of time before I like drop my dye notebook into a vat of water and lose all of my recipes. Most of them I have committed to memory to some extent. I could probably recreate them, but I'd really rather not have to go through that trauma of having to recreate popular dye shades. via trial and error. Especially given there are some shades that are very close together. They're very similar, so I'd have to just be like, is it this one? No, it's not that one. So I'm looking to digitize it, but I haven't figured out the best way to do that yet. I know some people use, what's it called, like a Rocket notebook, where it like automatically uploads to the cloud for you. But I don't know how much those are, or if there's like there's usually a subscription sort of focus thing. Everything is a subscription based thing now. I realize I say that, but I have a physical yarn that I send out with our subscription clubs. It's not a software subscription, which is what I find a little bit frustrating sometimes. Okay, so that's the first color in. I'm going to use the next color now. Actually, that's a lie. I'm going to start in at the edges and I'm going to work my way in. Can you see what I'm doing over here? Yeah, you can. Okay. Give it a good old smush. So, I don't know, maybe it's silly for me to be showing you how I dye things, but whatever. Whatever. What are you going to do? Does anyone really want to be spilling giant vats of blue dye on their floor? My guess is probably not. I mean, I didn't even want to do that, but hey, that's what happened this morning. Oh my god. It's totally set me back for today, no lie. Like, in a wildly frustrating way. Because I still have to dye all this yarn. That's my Chicago coming out. I still have to dye all this yarn, and then obviously I have to edit this podcast and put that up, and I have a grumbly throat. No, I have some things, some admin to do on the website. I have to send out a newsletter. I have to do a bunch of post scheduling. Otherwise I forget what I'm doing. I forget what I'm doing with my life. Not that that's anything out of the norm. So I hope you're all enjoying this. I hope this isn't just for not me just spilling enormous amounts of dye on the floor in my kitchen. Yikes. Yikes! Just yikes. So this is the color that I can only get from American dye suppliers. I said studios. I mean, I guess it's a studio to an extent. This colorway does use a fair bit of it, but I'm like a little nervous about it, because if I think I have another full one after this, but once I get down to probably about half of that one, I'm gonna have to start restricting. I'm gonna have to start restricting colorways and basically saying, you know, I can't offer these for sale for a while until I'm able to get my hands on this dye again, because there's not a good way to mix it. Trust me, I've tried. There's not a good way to mix it, and there's also there's no real good substitutes, which I guess is kind of the same thing as what I just said, but whatever. There's not really a lot of good substitutes. There's things that will get kind of close, but it doesn't have the crispness. I realize that we're talking about yarn and not like snacks, but just bear with me. It doesn't have like the crispness of this blue that I like so much, and that's why I choose this blue for a lot of colorways. A lot of the other substitutions, they don't have that crispness, and they look a little bit flat when you dye with them, and that's just no fun. So the biggest thing when dyeing in pans like this for me, I know that everyone's methods are different, but is like getting up underneath to where there's, you know, obviously uncovered parts. And I am drying off this spoon between each dip into the pan, because ending up with wetness in your dye pots is horrendous. It's not good. It is not good. Just trust me on that. Messes with your dye. It clumps everything up. You end up having to either try to break up the clumps, or you end up, you know, having to just get rid of the whole thing. And with this, I especially don't want that. As I have said, I am hoarding it. I am like a dragon hoarding my blue dye. This specific blue dye, I'm pretty sure I can get almost everything else from one of the suppliers here, but I cannot get this one specifically because I've looked. And the other thing is that a lot of dye suppliers, their formulas are slightly different, which is why one will call something red violet and another one will call it just purple, and another one will call it royal purple or whatever. And it's because of those very subtle distant differentiations, which can affect a lot of things actually. It can affect how the dye breaks. So if you're using it for speckling, it can really make a big difference on that. And it can also make a big difference. It can also make a big difference about how that dye takes up in different acidic environments. There are some dyes where if there's more acid or less acid, it can end up looking, you know, considerably different actually than it would in other pH environments. So these are all things that you learn as you go, and this is also why indie dyers charge what we do. Because there's been a lot of trials and errors, you know, along the way. Okay, I'm gonna call that good. I will have to flip these over and do this again when this yarn is done steaming and then cooling. So I'm gonna put this lid on, and that's the last we'll see of that for a couple of hours. And turn the heat on. And now we're gonna go and we're gonna do some snack. Okay, so I'm about to dye Sneck, which is another one of the Oregon Trail yarns. So lots of back orders for that this week. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put some water in this. I'm gonna let that start soaking up the water. I'm gonna probably give it a little bit more water. Give this a little bit more water. Not too much, but it does need a little bit more. Especially in these corners here. Again, if you have too much water or too little water, it causes problems when you're working on dyeing. So I was just kind of talking about, you know, all the different things that you learn about different dyes when you're an indie dyer. Last night on Instagram, I posted kind of an Ask Me Anything post. Look how smurfy I am. I posted an Ask Me Anything post. Just saying, you know, you can ask me anything. You can ask me anything, yarn related or not. Had some funny questions. People asking about video games and that sort of thing. Cake versus pie. Team cake, by the way. But somebody asked, I can't remember who it was, but somebody asked me, if somebody told you that they wanted to make a living dyeing yarn, would you encourage them or discourage them? And to be honest, okay, so this is this is Sneck. Sorry, I'm just pausing that for a second. And I'm just gonna sort of be sprinkling some dye here. But this is one of the other like citric acids that I use that is for speckling that I mentioned, the 3 kinds. Anyway, so somebody asked if I knew somebody who wanted to become an indie dyer, would I encourage them or discourage them? And I feel like I'm always going to encourage people to follow what they want to do in life. But I feel like I would also be very real. And that realness would be to say, dyeing yarn's only going to end up being like 20% of what you do. I wish that it was more, genuinely. I super wish that it was more of what I did. But it's not. Because there's a lot more if you want to have a business that's going to pay you enough to, you know, actually pay your bills and sustain you. It's not enough just to dye pretty yarn. Wow, the sun just super came in through that window there, didn't it? Okay. Anyway, so there's a lot more to it than just dyeing nice yarn. There's a lot of people that I know that dye beautiful yarn. They have no interest in making a business out of it because, you know, they're not interested in the business side of things. And I would say that if you want to have a handmade business, you have to be interested in the business side of things. You have to be, otherwise it's not going to work for you. I'm going to try and move this just very slightly. Okay, I have moved because you couldn't really see anything with that super bright light. I bet now that I've come over here, that bright light's gonna like immediately go away. And it's, yep, there it goes, back behind the cloud now that I've moved away from the bright light. Thank you, weather. You total troll. Okay. So I would say you have to be interested in the business side of things too. You know, you have to want to learn how to like run Facebook ads and market yourself, and you have to want to be into, you know, into networking and building relationships with other people and that kind of thing. Like I have a collaboration coming out soon with Aroha Knits where I dyed up some yarn for her inspired by Aquaman, and she's designed a really beautiful cowl pattern. I think she is still looking for testers maybe, so definitely hit her up on Instagram if that's something that you're interested in. So that's what I would say, like totally, like if you're here for it, if you really want to become an indie dyer, go for it. I'm not worried about, you know, competition. Like I don't see it as a competition. Other dyers aren't my competition. We all do things in such a different way and with such a different style and method, and we all have such different personalities and what we want to do, that like I don't see that as competition. It's just like, you know, I don't think that artists of any kind should see each other as competition. They should just see each other as being like, well, you know, hey, you make art this way, I make art a different way. You know, there's room for both of us because not everybody likes the same things. Obviously, most of y'all who watch this are probably people who like these weird punchy yarns with speckles and overdyes and neons and this kind of stuff. But there's a lot of people who are like, that's not my jam. I don't want bright punchy colors. I am much happier with more muted colors. I like my colors a bit more blended. People who don't like any white in their yarns at all. Which obviously I have a lot of colorways that don't have any white in them, but you know what I mean. People who like the really darker, moodier, deeper shades. So I really don't see that as a competition thing. So that's not something that really bothers me at all in any way, to be honest. I will always support my fellow indie dyers because, like I said, everybody does things differently. The way that Hutch from Dye Candy does speckles is different from the way that I do speckles, which is different from the way that Verity from Truly Hooked does speckles, which is different from the way that Libby from Needle and Thread does speckles. I've just given you a list of some excellent people you should totally check out if you're looking to buy some yarn. And, you know, and then you've got people like Lola of Third Vault Yarns who don't, she's not huge on the speckles, but her colors are beautifully blended. She does amazing gradients. She does these really deep, moody colors that are just stunning and look beautiful by themselves or paired with something else. So, you know, there's different indie dyers for everybody, so I don't really get hostile about that. To each their own. And, like, on that note, you know, I don't know, I'm not super worried about, like, copying or whatever, because there's only so many ways that you can dye yarn, and, you know, there's not really that many new ideas. Somebody somewhere has probably done it before, even if you didn't know of them previously. And you know what? There has been times where somebody has bought yarn from me, and then 3 months later, I see something that they're selling with basically an identical dye structure, and they've even named it something similar. Yes, that happens. But you know what? Like, I'm not going to get all, you know, I don't think that it would accomplish much. It would be different if somebody was trying to copy my charity colorways, but, you know, they aren't. So, but anyway, that's enough about that, because that's not really something that keeps me up at night, so it shouldn't keep you up at night either. But that would be my answer if somebody said they wanted to start a dyeing business. My answer would be, you know, that you've got to really be in it, you know. Alright, I think that's probably about good, because those colors are going to spread a lot after I heat this one, which I'm going to go do. That sun's back though, so I'm glad that I moved. So I'm going to go and I'm going to put this on the heat. This is only step 1 of 3 for this snack yarn, and I'm honestly only going to show you this step because by the time I get around to the other steps, I'd rather be like editing and posting this video. I probably should have filmed this yesterday, but yesterday was posting day and I was posting stuff. Anyway, my point is, here's step 1. If you want to know what it looks like at the end, head to the website, look up snack. I also have it on a merino bamboo, which is nice. I don't have any of that in the pan today though, because I think I'm actually out of that base. I need to order more. So okay, here we go. Alright, so I was going to show you the mini skein sets, but honestly it's probably going to be pretty boring to watch. because a lot of it is just me running back and forth and adding water and adding dye, and I'll be concentrating too much to actually speak. So, and honestly, it's not really that interesting, this particular process. The interesting part comes later, and I probably wouldn't film that anyway because it's going to be so much later in the day that, again, I'd rather be editing and posting this and not waiting around, because that kind of crunches up my day, and I've had enough crunching of my week and things being thrown out of balance the last couple of weeks. So you're probably wondering what you're looking at. It's my fridge behind me, and then this is the enormous giant stack of boxes, which was added to last week. I did some reorganizing, but the boxes that you can see is the it's a combination of stuff that needs to be photographed and like photography props, and then down here is all of our pins, enamel pins, which we will be getting more of. Look at this giant blue dye stain on my face. What a good look. And underneath all of the enamel pins is a load of semi-solids, which used to live in the hallway, and now they live here, because now the undyed yarn, which used to live next to the computer desk, I've now put into these two massive, like 120 liter plastic bins with lids, so that lives in the hallway now, which is good, but also those bins are heavy, so I'm gonna be like ripped in a few weeks just pulling those things down. I have tried to like organize it so that I know what I'm dyeing each day and I can pull it all out in the morning rather than having to keep going back and forth and pulling them down and putting it back up. Anyway, you don't need to know about the intricacies of my storage habits. If you're wondering what's behind me, there's some dish soap and some bottles of sparkling water that I've been having with my gin liqueur, which is like, it's like, what is it? Mango, papaya, and yuzu. I didn't know what a yuzu was, and I had to look it up the other day. I don't think I've ever seen a yuzu in real life. They kind of look like oranges, so some sort of a citrusy thing. They look delicious, but I've never seen one. I'm sure somebody's going to be like, oh, Ange, if you just go to this particular market, they've got tons of yuzus. But, I mean, obviously markets aren't really on now. That hissing is the slight bit of water that's underneath the pot that's hissing because it's heating. Anyway, I don't know. I don't really have much else to tell you today other than that dye. That mess kind of took it out of me. I'm going to be real honest with you. That mess definitely took it out of me. And seeing my face in the camera with this giant blue splodge on my face, and I look smurfy, and I can still see a blue footprint over there that I need to go and clean up. I'm just a mess. I'm gonna go order myself something to make up for it. Well, I'm gonna dye these mini skeins first. I'm gonna edit this and so on and so forth. I don't really know what I'm gonna be talking about next week. But hey, I had a finished object to show you this week, so that's momentous. I really wish that I had more to show you week on week, but I'm just not a fast knitter, and I have other things that occupy my time, like Animal Crossing. So I just haven't been doing that much, and I need to decide now that this is done what I'm going to go back to, whether I'm going to cast on something new, which I shouldn't, or if I'm going to work on something that's in a project bag, which I should. So I'm going to have to see where the winds of change lead me and what I end up working on. I would like for it to be something that needs to get finished. I sort of abandoned my Alaska hat, I will be honest. I've abandoned it because I didn't like how the second mini skein that I was using was looking knitted up against that background. I think because I was using Sneck, which I'm dyeing today, I was using Sneck as the dark color with the trees, and I think I underestimated how much those speckles pull through after the double over dye, and so it was confusing some of that. I don't know. Anyway, so that's in the bag of shame, and it's gonna stay there until I figure out what I'm gonna do with it. And so I don't know, I've got a couple of, oh god, I have four garments that are unfinished that I should probably get back to knitting. I think it's because one of them was like a crop top thing, and I was gonna knit it, and then I thought I was really clever and I was gonna knit it on bigger needles to make it go faster, but now I'm wondering if that doesn't like compromise the fabric and make it look a little bit weird. So I'm wondering now if I should just rip all of that back and suck it up, even though I hate ripping stuff back. I hate it! I hate it! I super hate ripping stuff back. It is not my jam. It disturbs me on a visceral level. Can't do it. Usually once I rip stuff back, I'm like, nope, that's it. Rip the whole thing out. Never knitting this again. The end. There's something about returning to something that I've already done before that just makes me feel deeply uncomfortable. So, I don't know. It's probably a personality flaw that I should deal with. In any case, so I might have to just, I do really like that pattern though. So I feel like if it's been long enough since I knitted it, that if I rip it out now, it won't feel as bad. Usually, I will say that usually when I rip stuff out, I get Sarah to do it for me, because if I do it, I feel like betrayed by my knitting, whereas if Sarah does it, it feels slightly less like betrayal, and I can just pick it up and carry on. I don't know what I'm talking about. See, I'm just like yammering about random stuff, about projects I need to finish and rip back, and I don't know, and I should go and do something else now that I have these yarns on the go. I actually don't have any more heating implements available right now anyway. I can do 2 pans in a pot or 2 pots in a pan. I am unable to get more heating elements, which I discovered a couple of months ago, because I do have another one. I do have a spare one up there, because I thought I was going to be really clever and get myself an extra heating element to put on the table for busy weeks. And then I discovered that our wiring isn't quite up to the challenge, and it will blow a fuse every time. So I'm stuck with these 3 until we move or get a studio space or whatever. Anyway, see? Yammering. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. I should probably have some breakfast, because we've not actually eaten yet. I don't even know what time it is. That giant mess on the floor took me a while to clean up, so I should probably eat something. And I should probably see what my animals are up to on Sharky Island. Thank you all so much for watching this complete and utter disaster from start to finish. Please do like and subscribe if you want to see me drop more pots of dye on the floor and make huge messes and then have Smurf hands and have blue dye on my face after thinking, oh no, I hope my phone doesn't fall into the plop. So please do like and subscribe. Drop me a comment down below about, I don't know, maybe if you saw something interesting today, if you have thoughts and opinions on dinosaurs. I should stop. I should go eat. Thank you all so much for watching. I will be back next week with an episode about, I don't know. Please join us on Saturdays for our Saturday night live streams, which have been starting at 8 p.m. British Standard Time, British Summer Time, whatever, BST, London time. We will be starting at 8 p.m. We are playing a game called Not For Broadcast this week, which is about choosing what does or doesn't get put into a television broadcast. It's very choice-based. There will be audience participation. It will be fun. Please come join us. Thank you so much. Peace out.